the 28th of July, 1914, the First World War began. As you know, Germany's strategy to win the war was the Schlieffen Plan. This plan called for the invasions of Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg, sweeping around the defenses on the Franco-German border, quickly knocking the French out of the war, and then dealing with the threat of Russia. German Chief of Staff Helmuth von Moltke, the Younger, did alter the plan by taking the Netherlands out of the equation. However, this strategy still had at the very least two fatal flaws. It depended on the speed of the German advance and weak Belgian opposition. The invasion of Belgium began on the 4th of August 1914 after the Belgians rejected a German ultimatum for passage through the country. Once they crossed through the frontier, fighting began around the city of Liège, where the Belgians had constructed a ring of fortresses designed to hold off an invasion. The battle lasted until the 16th of August, and the Germans only won after bringing up heavy artillery like the Big Bertha 420mm howitzer. Since the forts were built decades prior to the war and were just concrete without being reinforced by steel, the artillery made quick work of them. However, this one battle delayed the Germans for days. Meanwhile, the Belgians defeated the Germans at the Battle of Holland on the 15th with over 1,000 German casualties. At Namur, the Germans took what they learned at Liège and waited until their heavy artillery arrived before attacking. It wasn't just the Belgians the Germans had to fight. At Dinant, the French held the Germans back until the 24th of August. The invasion also brought Britain into the war, where at Mons they inflicted heavy German casualties despite being defeated. The Germans then tried to take Paris. However, they were stopped at the first battles of the Marne and the Aisne. Thus began the race to the sea, where both sides tried to break the deadlock by flanking the other, which resulted in a series of indecisive battles. Why am I mentioning this? Because during that time, tens of thousands of German troops were busy besieging the port city of Antwerp, thus preventing them from joining the actions further west. There, the Belgians, with some British reinforcements, held out for 12 days before surrendering or being interned in the Netherlands. The Belgian army then retired to the river Yser, where the German advance stalled. At the same time, the First Battle of Ypres began, where the German losses were as high as 70% for little gains. A new front was created on the Yser, where the last bit of Belgium, less than 5% of the country, remained free from German occupation. This made Belgian King Albert I a national hero who fought alongside his men, sharing the same dangers as them for years to come. It is worth noting that many Germans refused to shoot at him out of either respect for his bravery or fearing the consequences for murdering the Kaiser's cousin. The Germans tried to speed up their advance, but that is easier said than done. With few motor vehicles, the German army could only go as fast as it could march, the artillery even slower. The weather during the initial invasion was also hot, and the average German soldier wore a wool uniform while carrying equipment such as a rifle, ammunition, mess kit, shovel, and whatever else they would need. It also didn't help that the Entente armies destroyed the railways and bridges as they retreated, slowing down the Germans even more. It would be weeks before the German engineers finally repaired them enough for military use. At the same time, the Germans brought with them a new reign of terror. This is known as the Rape of Belgium. As the Germans advanced into Belgium, they had increasing fears of Francs-Tireurs, guerrilla fighters who in the Franco-Prussian War were a thorn in the German side. This fear is highlighted in the city of Louvain, where the Germans destroyed over 2,000 houses while looting the foodstuffs and industrial equipment. They also broke into the university library and deliberately burned it to the ground, destroying hundreds of thousands of historic books, manuscripts, and incunabula. This supposedly started because a group of Belgians fired upon German soldiers. However, it is more likely to have been friendly fire. Many Belgian civilians were either imprisoned, shot, or bayoneted, including the women and children. In fact, Belgian nuns were told to strip down because the Germans thought they were spies. And in just the city of Aarschot, between the 19th of August and the 9th of September, women were repeatedly raped and 156 people were executed. By the fall of 1914, the war was not over and the Germans had failed. Sure, they had conquered most of Belgium and all of Luxembourg, but that did more harm than good. France was not defeated. Britain joined the war, giving the Germans new enemies. Germany's terror of the country was propaganda fuel for the Entente, and now they were stuck with a two-front war. For years, the Germans would try to use the conquered territory to their advantage, using the civilians as forced labor and making use of the resources. But this would all be in vain, since by 1918, the Germans were forced to soon retreat and surrender. Thank you everybody for watching. Like, comment, and hit subscribe.